The smell was the first thing that hit him, an acidic, iron-rich stench clinging to the recycled air like rot in a sealed tomb. Ethan Voss adjusted the filter on his helmet, double-checked the pulse rifle slung over his back, and stepped further into the derelict structure. His boots squelched in something that was once organic. Blood, maybe. Something worse, probably. The map said this was once a livestock processing facility on Virex 9, an abandoned agricultural moon. But it wasn't livestock anymore. At least not the kind Earth would recognize. The Xenari had repurposed it during the war, a hidden black site to break and process prisoners of war. Mostly non-combatants. Mostly alien. Sometimes human. The ceasefire had come 6 months ago. Too late for places like this. Ethan swept his flashlight across the corridor, catching glimpses of metal cages, claw marks gouged into walls, and warning signs scrawled in languages he didn't understand. Then he heard her. A whimper. He raised his rifle instantly, light beams scanning jagged shadows. The sound came again, closer now. Not hostile. Fragile. Desperate. He found her in the corner of a dim holding chamber. She was curled tightly, her skin pallid lavender, body smeared in dried fluids and bruises. She looked barely more than a teenager, if her species aged like humans. Rags hung off her skeletal frame, and scars, fresh and old, ran down her back like someone had painted her with pain. She didn't react to the light at first. Didn't even flinch. Just stared at the floor. "Hey," Ethan said gently, lowering his weapon. "I'm not here to hurt you." She looked up, and he felt something in his chest tighten. Her eyes were enormous, glowing faintly, filled with a kind of grief that didn't belong to someone still alive. Not really. Then she crawled toward him. Not walked, but crawled, like a creature trained to kneel. She collapsed at his feet, reached out, and clutched his boot. "Use me," she whispered in broken Terran. "Hurt me. Just don't leave me here. Please." Ethan's stomach turned.
No.
"No, kid. What they did to you, I'm not like them." Her voice cracked. "Then kill me. But don't leave. Not again." Her name was Liry. She was of the Drellin, an aquatic-based species known for diplomacy, peace, and their haunting songs. Ethan had served alongside a few of them during the war. The Xenari hated them, called them soft meat. Liry had been taken from a refugee convoy. That had been 2 years ago. She didn't know if her family was alive. Didn't want to know. She hadn't asked Ethan for help, not really. She hadn't begged to be rescued or to return to her people. She'd begged for belonging. Even if that meant pain. Even if that meant being used. Even if it meant being owned. That night, Ethan stayed beside her in the ruin, too angry to sleep. Not at her, but at the monsters who had made her like this. She flinched at loud sounds. Curled into herself at sudden movement. Spoke like everything she said needed permission. And when she offered herself to him again, softly, mechanically, he knelt beside her and said, "You're safe now. I won't use you. I'll help you remember you're not something to be used." She didn't understand, but she nodded anyway. Over the weeks that followed, Ethan kept her with him. He didn't turn her over to the military authorities. Too many survivors like Liry disappeared into quiet hospitals or were repatriated and never heard from again. Instead, he took a freelance contract as a planetary surveyor on a distant outer rim colony and brought her with him as his assistant. He taught her how to use tools, how to fly a shuttle, how to sleep without chains. She struggled at first, feared sleeping alone, sometimes panicked in open spaces. But she learned, and most importantly, she began to ask. One day, after a quiet dinner under the starlight, Liry sat across from him and whispered, "Why do you treat me like I matter?" Ethan looked up from his meal. "Because you do." But I'm broken. No, he said firmly. You were hurt. You survived. That doesn't make you broken. She looked down at her hands, scarred, trembling, too thin. I still hear them sometimes. In my dreams. He nodded. Me too. She tilted her head. They hurt you. He smiled without humor. War hurts everyone. Liry reached across the table and touched his hand. It was the first time she touched him without fear or obligation. The turning point came during a rescue mission. A distress signal had gone out from a crashed freighter nearby. Ethan responded. When he arrived, he found 3 human children and a wounded pilot surrounded by rogue drone sentries. The drones were about to fire when Liry stepped into the open and sang. Ethan hadn't heard her sing before, not truly. Her voice wasn't just beautiful. It was commanding, ancient. The sound shimmered through the air, harmonics crashing like waves, interfering with the drone sensors. They collapsed one by one, their systems fried. When the children ran into Ethan's arms, sobbing, Liry just stood there, shaking. He approached her slowly, afraid she might fold in on herself. But she didn't. She looked at him and whispered, "Was I useful?" He didn't answer. He just wrapped his arms around her. And she sobbed. Not like a slave begging to be kept, but like a person who finally realized she wasn't alone. The Galactic Tribunal came after that. Survivors of black sites were being called to testify. Ethan didn't want her to go, but Liry said, "I need to." He traveled with her, stood beside her as she faced the council, diplomats, officers, representatives from dozens of species. She didn't speak like a victim. She spoke like a flame that refused to be extinguished. They told us we were nothing. That pain was our purpose. That being forgotten was mercy. But I remember everything. And I will not let this be forgotten. There wasn't a dry eye in the chamber. When it was over, a Drellin ambassador approached her. He bowed. "We thought you were lost." "I was," she said, her hand reaching instinctively for Ethan's. "But I was found." Months passed. Ethan kept working contracts. Liry became a voice for survivors, often appearing via hololink to support reforms and declassification. They still traveled together, still watched the stars, still cooked quietly at the end of long days. But one evening, as they prepared camp on a moonlit ridge, Liry sat beside him and said, "I used to think I had to be hurt to feel real. But now, when you look at me, I feel more alive than I ever did." Ethan turned, startled by the softness in her voice. "I'm not asking you to use me anymore," she said. "I'm asking if I can stay with you. Not because I need to, because I want to." He didn't speak right away. He just held out his hand. And she took it. Epilogue. The Xenari war left behind many ghosts. Some screamed. Some whispered. But a few, like Liry, sang. Not songs of sorrow, but of survival. Of reclamation. Of humanity. Not just in humans, but in anyone who chooses love over violence, care over cruelty. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone isn't to fix them. It's to stay. Even in the slaughterhouse. Especially there.